So I recently was told I was a kick in the pants. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Yeah, I don't know. It's like I don't really want to be related to anybody's pants. Like I don't want to be something stuck to someone's pants. I don't want to be like a load in someone's pants. I don't, it's just like I don't want to be related to something in their pants unless it's like very specific. Like if I'm trying to get into your pants, then maybe that would be
Yeah, alright.
okay. Okay,
But you
but
don't want to be a kick in the pants?
I don't know. Like I can just see some old guy with a cowboy hat and one of those ties saying, "Oh, you're Sonny, you're a kick in the pants," and me
Yeah.
being like, "I don't want to be next to you right now."
I've got ad block, but I'm choosing not to do that because I want to support the creators, even though it's basically meaningless because of how much my view is worth.
No, I actually think that you have to you are part of the aggregate, and like a lot of things are basically based on the aggregate, like voting and things like that. Where I think that it's even more important as far as YouTube because I watch a lot of like Let's Players, and their aggregate count does count towards like their revenue. And so like we've talked about this before about like different sorts of ads that we're okay watching because we want to support the idea of free content, or they're going to say, okay, well, if you watch this ad, you can get some free content, and you know
Right, I'm totally okay with that. But it is kind of annoying when the ads are very repetitive.
yeah, I it's one of those things where you're just like it would be better, like as far as the way that they dealt ads, if it followed any sort of like actual human interaction. Because usually, like I'll watch like a 2 minute video. If it's gonna be like a trailer of a movie, I'll even watch weird like home ec videos. Like if you're gonna do a 2 minute spiel on a vacuum, I recently watched like a 2 minute commercial on LED strips, and it's mostly because I'd never seen the commercial before, and I was fine basically seeing what they were about. But you only really need to watch the commercial once or maybe twice 6 months later, because if you end up watching it 15, 30 times, it gets to the point where you almost resent the company, the product, the process. You know what I'm saying? Where you're just
Yeah,
like, this is driving me nuts. Like recently, like a commercial like that has been on YouTube a lot is the Super Bowl commercial with Riley, the guy who gets to be Pac-Man. That's the commercial, but and they do have the skip option because it's like 2 minutes. But like I've seen that commercial probably 100 times, so it's not good.
yeah, like that's the problem. YouTube does this particular thing where if anybody is not familiar, they play an ad. You'll watch like maybe half hour or an hour of YouTube where you're clicking through a bunch of different 3 minute videos and they'll play one or two, maybe two ads over and over. And so, like, yeah, you get the skip button most of the time. So you see, like, the first 3 seconds of the same ad. And occasionally you'll watch the ad if it's interesting enough. But it's really bad. I wish they would mix up the ads a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, it does kind of inspire certain behaviors like ad block and things like that, where you're just like, no, I mean, if you had a variety enough of commercials, then you wouldn't have to do that. I mean, it's fine. Like you can even bring back like old commercials, like Cindy Crawford drinking Pepsi or something. Like it would be fine.
That'd be really cool. Like, I'd actually want to see some older ads.
Right, especially if it was like for a product that still changed. Coke is still around, McDonald's is still around. There's a lot of like big name brands that have been around for years. Like Budweiser doesn't need to come up with new material all the time, especially if you're going to do completely repetitive things. So, in our technical difficulties, you used a book to prop up your laptop, and
I did.
you did mention that Harry Potter again comes to save the day because that was the that was the instrument, the tool to which you've been able to to solve your particular problem. But I noticed it was like the old art. You know how they've come out with the new art yet?
No, no, it's not the old art. It's so we have a special edition seventh book
Okay.
that is like has a really nice case that's gold, and the cover of the book is like a full art when Harry, Ron, and Hermione are escaping from Gringotts on the dragon.
Do you know the? I don't know the artist who did the original like 6 or 7 books. Do you know their name?
Yes, same artist. There is a fan who did this particular special edition cover.
Okay, but it's in the same style, or?
It is similar style, yes. The illustrator, I'm so ashamed that I don't know this off the top of my head. Her name is Mary. I know her first name.
You're on first name basis with her.
No, I just know her first name. Mary Grand Prix.
Oh, okay. Well, see, because like they've recently re-released it with like the simple iconic conicized sort of thing. Like, you know what I'm talking about?
No, what do you mean?
Um, like they've like released a different cover that basically takes away. It's like in a completely different style.
Oh, yes, I do know what you're talking about. Okay, so you are unaware, but every country has a different cover.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought in England and the United States it was similar. Same with Australia.
No,
I thought it was like.
no, they are UK, America. Every country that it's in, every language it's in, is different.
Oh, okay.
So you may have seen one of the newer covers. There's like an adult cover, which is like a simplified. It's like black and
Yeah,
like a
it's
symbol.
yeah.
And then there's also like the new covers that have they're like all the same look, and they're like dark, and they're dark blue and gray and black. So there's a few different ones. I'll put a few links to those in the description in case anybody wants to check out some really cool art. Some follow up from last time. Even though no one's given me any follow up, besides maybe my mom, who said she liked it very much. Shout out to you, Mom.
Yeah, she talked to me about it as well.
Of course, as with anybody's moms, they will generally encourage you in anything you do. So, unfortunately, it's not incredibly valuable for your mom to say,
Thumbs
"Oh, I
up.
really liked it." Yeah, because unfortunately, they're the most biased person towards you who could be. So yes, but our follow up from last time. Last time we got to one of my follow up things, which was social media blockers. Kind of. We were talking about ad block just a second ago, and I recently came into some knowledge about you can run. I have this big problem with Facebook, and you can run basically this add-on for Firefox or Chrome where you sort all of the information to be the way you want it, so you kind of block ads and you don't have to see BuzzFeed videos if you don't want to, and I found it really useful. I'm all about using your machine the way you want.
Right. Like I did watch, the Veritasm video that you had on your post, and it is really annoying. I have noticed that Facebook basically blocks information from like, friends, and if they're not like a huge poster, and that is really annoying. But since I don't have Facebook, it's not a huge problem.
Right, right. I kind of in one of my posts I talk about why Facebook sucks some more, and I'll put a little link to what he's referring to rather. I found out why soda is fizzy.
The fact that they have carbon dioxide dissolved in water.
Yes, and not because it has bubbles in it.
Well, it's basically what's interesting is that you can dissolve solids in liquid. You can dissolve like salt and sugar, and you can oversaturate both of those things, where salt and sugar will crystallize out of the liquid, even if it's still in the liquid.
Right.
But of course, certain sort of chemical experiments will be based on the idea that you're going to let the liquid evaporate or you're going to do something with the liquid. But you can also dissolve gas in liquid, and that is basically how we have carbonation.
That's really interesting. My understanding was that the fizzy feeling on your tongue is actually the taste of carbon dioxide. It's not the bubbles.
Yeah, as far as I understand, yeah, carbon dioxide does have a taste. I haven't really I haven't really thought about it as much as just because the taste of soda, like you don't tend to have like completely deoxinated, carbon dioxide, Mountain Dew, and then you drink Mountain Dew. But I don't know, did we talk about this in the podcast last time about like the flatness of soda versus like our preference?
This is actually going to be an issue that many podcasters have, which is that, did we talk about this last time? Because we kind of have, Ben and I have a personal relationship where we talk occasionally outside of the podcast. So we talk about stuff, and we talk about stuff with other people, and you're like, did we talk about this? So you know what? We're bound to repeat ourselves. I think it's inevitable, and I'm fine with it.
Yeah, but like last time it was really bad. I think we talked for like 3 hours after the podcast was over. So it's just like, oh my gosh, what part of that conversation actually got recorded?
Here's what I know about that. We recorded the good part.
Well, that's good. That's good.
And then we went and discussed some nuanced thing for 3 hours,
Yeah.
where it probably didn't really matter, but it's good we hashed it out.
Right.
We went to the ends of the conversation.
Yeah, we went through an ideological, like, just crazy town.
Most people are not willing to do that.
Yeah, that's true. I kind of wish that would spread, and I hope that people would find that sort of enjoyable, because that's kind of where my conversations tend to go. But it's not for everybody's cup of tea, and it's I don't know how to manage that.
It's definitely not. Like, most people are. I would consider it kind of a nerdy trait, and most people do not want to have a really long conversation or deep conversation about most things. At least not the way we sometimes do. I have this thing in the back of my head, and you have to tell me if it's true or not. But it seems to me that for some reason, I think that you took swing dance lessons at some point?
I did.
Okay. The reason I was confused about whether this was something my brain made up or not is because you're not a swing dancing type.
I would actually disagree with that. My life
Well,
has gone away from that, but at one
okay.
time I was a singing, dancing Disney, character, Glee Club sort of socialite.
That is so bizarre to me. Like, that's not where you're at right now.
No, it's you go through certain. I was actually thinking about this, like you have shower thoughts where you stand in the shower and like contemplate the nature of the universe. But I was like trying to think about like my last big transformative experience where like I had an experience and it ended up transforming me. So like
A paradigm shift, you mean?
Paradigm shift gets used a lot. I think it's a very big buzz term, so I don't necessarily think that you're wrong, and I think that you're actually using the term correctly. It's one of those words that I tend to avoid right now because it's trending and everybody uses it incorrectly.
I try not to use it in a trending way. I like the concept. I don't think many things happen to be a paradigm shift, but this sounds like you're talking about a paradigm shift.
Right. I was basically a social butterfly in high school, and after I left college, I was quiet and introspective. So that is definitely a paradigm shift. Yeah.
Overall, an improvement, in my opinion.
I think that they both have their pros and cons. It was better to be a social butterfly because the world is kind of geared towards extroverts versus introverts. There's not a lot of places for a content and reserved person. The world tends to drive you towards being like a boisterous, gregarious, and ambitious. I've often thought of like moving to some place like Japan where the entire culture is a little bit more reserved because, I'm just that sort of person. Unfortunately, I don't agree with much of their social etiquette and taboo things, so it's just like, well, I don't know.
They do tend to have a lot of taboos.
Okay, so going back, why did you think that, why did this pop in your head where I was like, suddenly, Ben took swing dancing lessons, and this was like, I'm going to be. Are you going to be taking swing dancing lessons?
There's nothing in my life that made this come up in my head. It's just like,
In a past life, Ben took swing dancing lessons.
I was just thinking about stuff, and I tend to just go on a huge trail in my head, and I can't even remember where I started, but I ended up at swing dancing, and I was like, I think Ben did that. I was kind of in disbelief though, because you just don't. I was like, Ben is not at the moment. He's not a swing dancer, so
Yeah,
I was just like,
I'm gonna be reading a fantasy book in between partners.
yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna be totally distracted on the dance floor where like my partner's like, yeah, let's do a crossover, and I'll be like, oh, all right, just give me a second while I recompose myself. Right, okay, left step back. Right, okay, well, it's been a long time. One of our friends actually decided to have kind of a band, and they wanted dancing at their wedding, and so they actually kind of had a rally where they rounded up everybody and they said, okay, come on, we're going to take 5 minutes of dancing lessons so that we can have dancing at our wedding, because they pretty much assumed that no one knew how to dance.
That's really neat.
Yeah, and it was really cool. And actually, they have that. She, our friend, is a really big into swing dancing, and that's like one of her main hobbies. So I still have that sort of swing dancing connection. I don't think it's something that I ever really enjoyed. Now, what's interesting about this is I almost feel now that you brought this up that I should be like, Grant, you should go swing dancing. You should go ahead and learn, because I don't know, like, it seems like Maggie would be into that. Seems like you would have a good partner, and like I think that something, and actually your body type, long and lanky, actually would really work towards
Swing dancing.
swing dancing. Yeah, there's a lot of long, lanky swing dancers, and it works for them really well.
Maggie and I we've wanted to take dancing lessons in the past. I have some rhythm. I can dance a little bit, not I would say like it great or not like an actual style, more like just freestyling it while it's I'm not like an excellent dancer or anything, but I can keep a beat in with my body.
Really?
Maggie cannot do that. I don't know why, but she'll admit to it as well, that she's like, I just can't keep a beat. So we should take lessons because she would learn to follow.
Now, what's interesting about swing is that it's not overly important to keep every single beat, because you're in a loose form dancing where you might be moving for 7 out of 8 beats sort of thing. So
That might make it worse because she might not be able to catch it as well. I totally want to try. We definitely want to try swing dancing. It sounds like a lot of fun. Or just we were thinking ballroom, but yeah.
it can be a lot of fun. I have some problems with ballroom because like you get a little bit more into the proper way to ballroom dance. And I'm just like, I think it's like anything sort of hobby. It's just like, well, there's sort of okay, now I'm going to end up having to talk about demographics, Magic card demographics. So Magic, of course, is the game that we play where it's a fantasy-based card game, but because it's very designed very well as a game, they talk a lot about gamers and like different demographics, and Magic the Gathering have these three terms named Spike, and those are the people that get enjoyment out of winning. And then they have Johnny. Johnny is the combo player who really likes to do intricate things, and that's what makes them happy. And Timmy, who likes to do flashy, big things, and that makes them happy.
Right. I think this could apply to a lot of people who play games.
Right. And in this particular case, ballroom dancing, I wanted to make the sort of term that it seems like ballroom dancing can have a lot of spike dancers, where they're like they're going to have fun if it's all done properly. It's like ballet. There's a certain sort of form, and like now in modern ballet, they're kind of getting out of the rigidity of like classic dance forms. But there is sort of that place where if you get into classical ballet, they're going to want you to like be able to perform to that level so that they can ascertain your talent and your ability. And so I can kind of see why they do it in ballet, but ballroom dancing can like get when I was like I did some ballroom dancing, not very much because it was just like the fun was sapped out of it by this sort of mindset where they would be like, the proper way to ballroom dance is this. And I'm like, well, I'm just here to have fun, man. Can't I just have fun? And they're like, no, no, you must step back and do the turn. It's like, oh, God.
Huh, that's interesting. Well, that might have just been your particular teacher.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, mileage may vary sort of thing. Yeah.
Something we touched on last time is gender roles. How is that in swing dancing? Is there like a particular female part or feminine part?
This is something that I think that's really interesting is if you go back into the 1940s when it was like the swing dancing everything like
World War II.
I know I avoided it, right? I said the 1940s and 1930s. I don't know how it was in the 1920s, but there was a period of time where like men would dance with men and women would dance with women because it was just that you needed a dance partner, right? And it was all fun. And then of course after World War II, you had sort of the underground Blue Oyster Club sort of mantra where like you knew that there were drag queens there and you didn't talk about those people and you didn't associate with those people, right? And there were the gays and the cross dressers and they were the ostracized of their generations, this is prevalent before obviously World War II, but after World War II is when they really started having like their first sort of clubs and get-togethers. It was like the swingers clubs of today's, for instance, something like that, where it's like not really talked about, but what's going on. Right. So that's the kind of thing like was happening with people who were homosexual or wanted to cross dress or anything like that. And so then that's when dancing really got the reaffirmation from the conservative side that that men have to dance with women and it's not okay for women to dance with women or men to dance with men. So it's actually very recent sort of history where we would only dance with the other gender. Like
I did not know that.
back in the day, men danced with men, women danced with women. It's kind of like the old, the European kiss the man, hug the man who's your friend. He comes and says hi. You're like, hello, and
You're my buddy, and we'll hold hands.
so it's kind of funny that like that's the extent of homophobia in our cultures is that it's made this happen. And so nowadays, like if you go to swing dancing, you can get an old fashioned. Your mileage may vary again. Like you said, the teacher that I had with ballroom dancing, a teacher that you get in swing dancing could be very we need to have certain roles, and there is the only time that really roles really matter in swing dancing is actually related to height because it's really hard to do some of the moves and like to swing your partner under your arm if there's like a 3 foot difference in height. Usually if it's like less than 6 inches, you can get away with a guy who's shorter, going over a woman or whatever. But the height
I
matters.
might have that problem.
Height matters. Well, the fact is
I'm
that
pretty long.
because you're going to be expected to lead and you're the man, you're not going to have any problems with the moves, right? But
Oh, okay.
if Maggie was a 7 foot giant, then you might have to have her lead just because the moves are set that way. And now, when like for instance, like we went just recently to our friend's wedding, many of the women danced together because demographically it seems that there are more women at swing dance events than there are men. Like, I don't know if that goes back to also the homophobic thing where dancing is a
Not
girly, interest. I have no idea. It's really hard to separate some of the stuff from like the homophobic past because if you get back, into the 1930s and earlier, like we just didn't have this sort of prevalent fear and ostracization, like where like gender roles were being overly asserted.
That's a bit disappointing. I don't ever wish for the good old days, but it's too bad.
Yeah, it's
Maybe
like,
we can go back.
well, it's like, at one time, like, because homosexuality was so underground that you could dance with another man and not have to worry about being called a gay or something like that. It was so underground that you didn't have to fear basically persecution from homophobic people.
Right, because there's just an expectation that nobody is.
Yeah, nobody is gay. There was no gays in the 1930s or something. There was no gays in the 1870s. It'd be like, yeah.
I want to talk about something you just did a second ago
Okay.
that I was thinking about that I wanted to talk about with you. Because we have very contrasting realities in this particular subject. When you went and scratched your beard earlier.
Oh yes, I have a beard. So for
It's massive.
anyone who wants to like visualize what I look like, I kind of look like a goofy lumberjack, I guess would be the way to like probably
That's pretty good.
a goofy. But you have to get the goofy part. I'm not a manly lumberjack, and I'm not like an overly like fat or disgusting lumberjack. I'm sort of like the goofy lumberjack where you're just
Hmm.
like, yeah, we should cartoon character that guy
Yeah, you'd make a good cartoon character,
as a
I think.
lumberjack, yeah.
Yeah, as a goofy lumberjack, yeah, with glasses, nerdy glasses.
Because you've talked about this where you don't like shaving,
Not really.
but you have problems with growing out a beard and then like keeping it, like where like it starts bothering you.
After about 3 days, it's so itchy, and I can't stand it. Like I think the longest I've gone is like probably a week and a little bit when I was younger and didn't have as much growing in. But I can't go that long because it drives me nuts, and I like to keep my face very very shaved and clean. I would prefer if I could hit a button that took away my ability forever to grow facial hair. I would slap that button so hard.
Well, they've talked about laser removal now. Like, there's a lot of conflicting information about laser removal that I don't really understand. Like, it works better for people with thick follicled hair, that is dark and deep rooted because apparently
And that's not me.
no, you have finer hair, and
I do have very fine hair.
the thing is that some people claim that laser removal is permanent, and then others just basically say, well, it's a very long-term solution. And so I
My understanding is it's not permanent.
like it'll come back in like a couple of years or 8 months
Hmm.
or something between those times. Yeah.
Right, so the expense and the pain isn't really worth it to me. I'll just shave.
Now,
It's
I
fine.
will say for all of you younger men who are thinking about growing a beard and are experiencing some of the similar problems that Grant is having, there's sort of a beard hump. For women who are listening, I would say that you'd have to understand that as far as growing facial hairs, it's always sort of a discomfort. Like, even when you're totally clean shaven, you have sort of that clean shaven, almost chapped, dry thing, and you can put on sort of lotions and then you're all lotioned up, and then you have sort of like the oily skin feel, or you can do the alcohol dry pore sort of thing where it like basically you get the shock of the alcohol on your skin and you're like, holy cow, and then it feels great, and then it just feels uncomfortable like 4 hours later. But like there is no real good state of comfort if you have any sort of facial hair growing ability. It just doesn't really happen. um,
Women, if you have facial hair growing ability, I'm sorry.
yes, because you will basically be judged by our society, regardless of whether or not it's natural. And
Right. Yes, well, so I actually think right after the shave is the most comfortable part because you're really smooth. Your face feels great. Doesn't have any of that dry.
yeah, you still have the moisture from like the shaving cream and washing the shaving cream. Your skin is like in that good moist area, but the fact is that it kind of dries out after you've shaved it, and it feels uncomfortable, even if you're clean shaven.
I use an aftershave lotion,
Right.
which is very light, so I actually kind of have a good balance, and I don't get that dry effect later on.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where like it's gonna really vary depending on your skin type and your pore type too. It's like,
Your solution, though, is to simply do nothing.
yeah, it was great. I tried to really do the clean shaven thing when I was like in the working world, and where I really thought that it would help me get ahead as far as like sort of the old fashioned, I don't know what you call it.
Really? You felt like you would get ahead, like you'd be judged less harshly based on that you didn't have a beard, like a conservative type value thing?
Yeah, because my father, he's a conservative type thing, and he thought that people who did not shave were grungy looking, and he kind of did a whole sort of like association of values of like the fact that they're unkept means that they're going to not care about the detailedness of their work or precision or there was a lot of different like associations and prejudices basically based on the fact that somebody did or did not shave or whether or not they kept a manicured or unmanicured beard. And honestly, even now, like if you go and a lot less people right now are less prejudiced against beard, but whether or not you manicure your beard is actually still very prevalent. It's like, oh no, he's unkept because he hasn't like manicured his beard, sort of thing, and like really given it a good trimming, and it's kind of like and I imagine that, women have the same sort of prejudice against them in different areas as well. So it's not something that, is gender only or beard only. This is very broad spread. But yeah, so no, and the fact is that I grew my beard probably about 12 to 15 years ago when I have to say, I'm really happy with the way that society is moving right now where there are more beard wearing men than ever.
I was gonna say it's way more accepted than it sounds like than when you were younger, because like at least in the Portland area there are so many beards all over the place, and it's not for me, but I mean I'm all like I think it's cool.
I think there's I think there's certain industries where I'm like totally okay with an employer saying, just for the state of things, it would be better if you're shaving. For instance, if you're working in a food industry, just having less hair in general is usually a good thing. So if I was working in the food industry and my employer came to me and said, hey, it'd be great if you could shave because that way there'd be less chances of basically, hair getting into food, I'd be like, you know what? Someone does not want to have my very red hair in their, Caesar salad with their dressing. So I'm going to go ahead and, do that. But I mean, even when I was like working with like Sears, and everything like that, if I was going to be working in the public view, they kind of wanted a more clean cut sort of professional image if they're going to be dealing with the public. And now I was a maintenance man, so it didn't really matter. But yeah, so it was, and it wasn't really explicit, but it was one of those things where like, what do you, if you're going to go and you're going to be seen by the customer base, you need to do whatever you can to like basically present a sort of neutral mainstream image.
I do have to say that your beard tends to vary wildly between, like, kind of right now it's kind of like perfect and round and very shapely, and it does look like kept up on.
Right, like I've trimmed it or something, yeah.
Right, and maybe you have trimmed it, but I think most of the time you don't really worry about it and you let it just be wild. And
I tend to go all natural. Now, like I said, there's like the beard hump, like, and the fact that you're always going to be uncomfortable, like, right? The 2 to 3 to 4, I'd say the first week of trying to grow out a beard is like the worst because you basically experience all the things that you were complaining about, the itchiness and the rubbing, and then um, this is like once you get over that hump though, it's no more uncomfortable than being clean shaven. Like there's still some manner of like slight discomfort there because you have facial hair and that's just the way it goes. Like, but I actually prefer myself to have a beard of something like this length than I would be clean shaven. I actually am more comfortable like this, right? But when do I trim my beard? I guess the question we're finally getting to, and it's when hairs that are getting so long enough that if I lay on my pillow, there's like no way to breathe because it like acts as a sheet that goes across my face, or I'm trying to
Wow.
like pick my nose with the bottom of my beard because like that's what happened when I rolled over in bed at night.
That is disgusting.
Well, it's just like, and the hair goes everywhere, and it's like if you get like the ones that are like on your sideburns, if they get too long, they can like come and try to poke you in the eye during your sleep, or if you do something silly like where go to rub your ear or something, right? And so there's a certain length where it starts attacking the orifices of my face, where I'm just like, okay, it's getting too long. Now, there's also something else to that thing. It's just that for women who've tried to grow out their hair, they know this, and this is the same thing with beards. Is that not all women have the ability to grow out their hair down to their knees? There's this sort of a natural rate of hair loss, and
You are talking about head hair here.
yeah, I'm talking about head hair. Where if a woman's growing out her hair, she might lose it at a sort of a rate where, at 2 feet down her or down like let's say just under your shoulders, you have like a 9% chance that a hair has gone through its natural growth processes and it has fallen out. And then there's sort of like, what if it's grown down like a foot down your back? Well, at that point, you've had like a 50% that a hair has gone through its natural life process and grown out. And so some women cannot grow hair down to their knees because by the time that it gets down to your knees, you're only going to have 1% chance that the hair would like go through that natural process before falling out, right? And it's the same thing as like with beards for men, is that not everyone can have a glorious ZZ Top beard. For any of you unfamiliar, ZZ Top is like a pretty old blues rock band, and they have sort of the iconic sort of motorcycle riding beard, even though I don't even know they ride motorcycles. It's just a stereotype, right? But anyway, but their beards are like, quite long. They go down to their belly buttons. I do not have that capability. The life process of my beard is that they will fall out before they get probably past about 6 inches past like where my chin is to
That's
about.
still pretty wizardly.
It's pretty long, but the thing is that it's right in that stage where it can basically come and poke me in the eye. And so that's
So you don't let it go that long.
right. The longest that I can grow my beard happens to be a very annoying stage. If I can grow it down to be a belly button stage, at that point it's like missed my eye and went over my head. So maybe it wouldn't be as bad then, but I have no idea. I am incapable of growing a beard, of such a stature.
I think you're wrong about something that women don't experience this. I think you're totally wrong. I think most women have, where men might have a pressure to shave their beard, women have a very large pressure to shave their legs. If they have their legs revealed in public, it is considered really weird to not have them shave their legs. So something I think is really stupid and we should just be fine with. And in Portland, you see it a lot where women will just not give a care.
Yeah, in the West Coast, we're gonna go ahead and take sort of the European natural mantra, but like in many parts of America, like and even on the West Coast, it's like you will definitely be like, oh my God, she's so nasty or nappy.
Right, and it really doesn't matter. It's just like everybody grows leg hair.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like really we should be able to have natural human beings and be like, they're beautiful. They shouldn't have to shave their legs or their armpits or their beards or do anything. Like, you should be able to look at a human and basically say that person is beautiful, but we do not live in that society.
No, we really don't. We have some trends towards that, which I'm all for. But yeah, at the moment we definitely don't.
Well, actually, speaking of such like sort of shallow visual things, like what's on a rising trend right now, which really bothers me because it goes the opposite way of like feeling okay with yourself as a human being in your natural state, is man makeup. It's becoming more and more common that men will want to wear makeup and do touch-ups, and
I think it's normal in maybe like a TV broadcasting world or a movie world, because they're all about appearance. But I feel this way about makeup, period. I'm anti makeup. I don't think makeup is something that, like, we should use. I understand if you're self conscious about a particular flaw in your skin, but embrace it.
Yeah,
Embrace.
I have to completely agree. The whole makeup thing is terrible, and actually, there's like a complete and terrible history about like, us using certain things in makeup, like, whale fat and whale oil and like all kinds of
Right.
like even nowadays where like, we want to use rare earth metals and just kind of crazy stuff where you're just like, stop putting it in makeup. Just like, if we didn't use makeup, it'd be perfectly fine. And even back in the day when I could be like, makeup might be fine because there was the sort of like the Renaissance age cases of like rapid syphilis and bed sores and everything like that. Then you're just like, no, you guys just need to have better hygiene in general, and then you can go off of makeup. Make it
Right. We
as
don't have that problem.
Yeah, makeup is if you really think about it, makeup is nasty because it's a remnant of the days when like our hygiene was so bad that we basically had to cover up all the sores that we had on our bodies. And you're just like,
That's
do
nasty.
you really want to perpetuate that sort of history? Like, just don't do makeup. We just gotten back from Costco. And of course, at Costco, I guess I should preface this by saying that I'm a people watcher. I don't know if you watch people. Do you watch people?
Nope. I don't want to look at people. I think every once in a while I will, but most of the time I do not want to look at ugly people. Lots of people are ugly in some places, and I'm not a fan of looking at them. And it's sometimes it's interesting and maybe even addictive, but I look away.
Huh, that sounds incredibly shallow. That you're just like,
Uh,
most people are ugly. I mean, the fact is that once we get past a certain age, we all look ugly. I mean, have you met a 90-year-old
yeah.
old where you're like, oh, that 90-year-old, she's hot and feisty, just like
No, I totally agree.
it's gonna happen. Like we're all gonna become we're all ugly to somebody.
Here's what I want to say. I think that, like, you're pretty. You can maybe start out as like pretty when you're, I don't know, 5. Okay.
Like they're like a pretty child, right?
Right, like away from the baby look,
Right.
okay, or toddler look, and they
Okay.
all just look like babies and toddlers. Okay, and then you get up to about my age, which is around 25 or a little later than that, and the prettiness starts going away, and you start to look more just like a person. And I'm not saying that, like, I'm not saying lots of people are ugly. Maybe I'm just saying that humans get ugly as they get older.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, there's a really broad range, I think, from like sort of mid-teens to like 35, maybe 40, where there's a good age gap where like people can actually be very attractive, because they're in that sort of sexual prime zone. And of course, that's kind of like where attraction is important for, anthropologically to, attract mates and things like that. So after 40 years, it's like, oh, yeah, if you haven't produced kids yet, you don't need to, so you're going to be ugly now. But like I don't know, like yeah, no, I do people watch. And I was at Costco, and just certain things were like driving me nuts, where I felt like I came up with like this theory of like the Costco parking lot, where there's like you see all sorts of weird behaviors where people will spend an inordinate amount of time and energy to find the perfect place in a Costco parking lot. And I'm sure this happens in other parking lots, but every time we go to a Costco, it's like super emphasized, where like, you'll have the circler who goes back and around and around and around, around, around. Like you literally have like, you saw the car when you parked, and by the time that you enter in the entrance, that person is still circling the parking lot because they haven't found the perfect spot yet. And you're just like, what qualifications do you need to park? I'm just curious, Mr. Circler, Mrs. Circler. Like, what happens like that? And then you have like the person who's the parker, who like parks and like basically sort of does this sort of predation parking thing. And of course, I'm a little bit not. That's also annoying, especially if it ends up blocking the entire process.
Like you mean, somebody's pulling out, or they're putting away their groceries, and somebody's
Yeah, no, there's a totally different class. There is that class where they basically who is the opportunist, the predator, right? They see someone who's just got their cart to their car, and who knows how long of a process it's going to take to get the kids in the car, get the groceries in the car, get in the front seat and do whatever people
That's awful.
people do in the front seats. I really tend to wonder what people do in their front seats when they get in the car because you can see some of the people who are the opportunist parker. They've waited the 5 minutes while they did the groceries. They get the kids in the car seat, but now,
And they block
yeah,
traffic.
and now do you expect the car to be backing up any second? But it doesn't because two people are sitting in their front seats doing whatever they do for 5 minutes, and this would be fine. There's actually nothing wrong with them doing living their lives in the front seat of their cars, except for you have this opportunist parker who is now blocking lanes of parking traffic because of this behavior.
Definitely not the fault of the people putting away their groceries. Definitely the fault of the
The
opportunists
fact
there.
is that you should be able to go and you sit in the parking lot for, a good 10 minutes after you've done your business and really just not disturbed anybody. It just
Okay, so
happens.
who were you talking about with the blocking before the opportunist?
Okay, so there's basically um, people who have no longer the opportunists, where they're not going to circle until they see the cart. They're it's a transitionary thing, like, right? I mean, maybe they do the circling thing for the first 5 years of their adult lives, and then they move to the opportunist where they circle until they see somebody pull out their cart, right? But no, there are people who basically go to the next level where they're like, you know what, there's no reason I need to circle until someone takes the cart. I'm just going to park here until someone takes their cart out in front of me.
That's insane. That is insane.
It just drives me up the wall, right? And so, like, I was thinking in the shower, I was like, there's a certain sort of distance from the entrance where there's got to be some sort of mathematical risk assessment where the cars are a certain size, lanes of, the lanes in a parking lot are a certain size, where it becomes so risky that you're going to spend more energy circling, parking, or being an opportunist parker that you have defeated the purpose of even trying to do any of those strategies, right? Where you should
Absolutely.
just park as soon as you could get and then just walk. Because like
The energy required, and the cost of money required
the
to
time, yeah.
basically spend gas, have your car running.
Yeah, it's just sitting there idle.
Yeah, it's sitting there idle, or you're just wasting gas
Or
money.
basically, subject other people to basically, the thing of like what I would typically do, which is what I do, is that this is my parking strategy, and it's crazy that you come to adult life and develop parking strategies, but it's true. It's the sad truth. Is that, I'm gonna when I start getting towards the entrance, I'm gonna park in the very first slot I see. But if I don't see any slots, I'm going to go through a pass. I'll go once through, once out, and the whole entire time I'm just like, I'm going to park in the very first empty parking slot I see. And if I go through the densest part and I come out the densest part, I'm going to park in the back 40, and that's just the way it is. And sometimes during the holidays, I just park in the back 40 because I'm not even going to deal with
Oh yeah.
I'm not going to deal with the two circlers, the opportunist, and then the parker. There's going to be like five people doing those things, and it's just not worth it. Just park in the back 40. You're just going to walk the 2 minutes to the entrance, and you're still going to beat 90% of those people.
If you're a circler, mom, then you have a problem. You should not circle. You should park and walk. It's good for you. Get some fresh air. Maybe
Yeah.
it's cold out, but it's still gonna be better for our entire society if that just didn't exist.
It's just like, it seems like this is the kind of thing, is that it seems like you would be able to actually do, like I said, a risk assessment of like, let's say that you got the very best parking spot, the grade A, like whatever it's like 20, 30 feet from the entrance, like that's the best one, right? There's got to be some sort of risk assessment where you'd be like, does that what do you lose if you don't get that prime spot? Like if you just park in the very first available slot that's kind of like within a certain average distance based on the average size of car and average lane, right? Just like the very first slot that you can park in, you park and you just walk. And it just seems like if you park and walk, you're probably going to be spending like maybe a minute if you always take the first one. Meanwhile, if you get the best, you'll only be like 20 seconds away. Meanwhile, it seems like every single circling strategy, every sort of opportunist strategy, every single parking strategy is going to take you more time in your life to perform.
I totally agree.
And it's all a risk. There's no guarantees. Like if you do a circling thing, there's no guarantee that you're going to get the prime spot. Sometimes you get lucky, but it's just like there's a risk associated with it. Meanwhile, if you just adopt like the park and walk strategy, it seems like the best use of your time as a living human being with a certain mortality and time on Earth. It's not worth it.
I don't know who does that. I really hope nobody I know does that, because it's just such an annoying behavior.
Right. Well, so as a people watcher, this is what I'm saying is that this Costco third thing means that I can basically write a book about basically stupid human behaviors that I observe at Costco. Because there's another one, which is that, and this is crazy, is because the other one is I'm going to pull into a gas driving spot and then pull the gas hose all the way to the opposite side of the car rather than simply get in the correct lane. Yeah, basically. Well, this is because, like, okay, I've lived in several different areas, and one of these ones, I lived about maybe 30 miles from the Canadian border, and it's something you may not know, listener, is that a lot of Canadians will come down and do their business in the United States, and take advantage of basically our subsidies when it comes to basically consumer goods. And in this case, we subsidize, we're like opposite of everybody else pretty much in the world, where we subsidize gas and oil, where, Canadians tax their gasoline. We're just like, yeah, gas and oil, we're going to let, laissez-faire economics, we're not going to tax it, we're just going to make it cheap as possible, and of course feed our predilection towards fossil fuels. That's what we do. But anyway, it means that if you go to like a Costco gas station anywhere near the Canadian border, it's going to be jam packed full of Canadians. And the Canadians do it too, which I don't really understand. It seems like insane that you would take like a car, like a large SUV truck, and the lanes are all arbitrarily large. So there's no advantage to try to like get one lane or the other. They're just huge. And you can observe people who will go through the wrong lane and then go through the extra damage and possibly, risk of scratching and damaging the paint on their car to like do the gas hose on the other side of the car. Meanwhile, last night we went through a totally empty Costco gas station, and some klutz was out there like going through the extra effort of basically pulling the hose over his car so that he could get to his fuel tank. And you're just like, the entire thing is empty. Why would you do this? It doesn't make any sense. Effort. You're basically risking your paint job. And paint, okay, this bothers me about paint and people, is that paint has a purpose. There's no point in painting certain things. And meanwhile, paint is very important to basically make sure that other things do not experience the detriment effects of like erosion or corrosion.
Wait a second here.
Right.
We got to talk about this, because I think that you don't value something. You're gonna argue that you do, but I'm gonna go ahead and argue that you don't really value the aesthetic of things as much as maybe I would. Much less than most
utilitarian.
People. Right, you're a little more utilitarian for sure. Where you won't paint something because you're like, I use this thing, and painting it would make it look better, but who cares?
Yeah, I'm definitely that way. Yeah, like if you're one who's reaching your gas hose over your car, in other words, to fill the gas tank, I guess you do have the possibility of damaging the aesthetic value of the paint. Also, you're going to rub off your racing stripes.
But you're more concerned about the erosion factor. You're going to cause some
the corrosion of basically the salts and everything that are on the roads that are going to eat away at your well, most of it's made out of plastic nowadays, so that's less of a thing. But there's still quite a bit of steel in cars, so it doesn't make any sense. Okay, so moving on to my next Costco pet peeve would be the witnessing at the hot dog stand, where the people get their hot dogs and they get their food, and then they spend 5 minutes in front of the soda fountain, basically getting their ice cubes perfect or defizzing their drink.
Okay, so this does sound like, this might be a problem. This has one of two things. Either Costco's particularly bad about human behavior, or You are particularly good at observing
Yeah, maybe it could just be that I'm like one of those, like one of those people, like
it. You're
who's gonna find something
silently
annoying with
judging people.
everything that they do. But like, it's one of those. I'm like, it's crazy the amount of energy that people will take to fill up their drinks at the soda fountain. I'm like, I'm actually fine with them filling up their cubes, and then I'll be like, that's way too much ice, and then like filling up their drink, or taking a sip out of their first drink and being like, apparently I didn't want Coke today, and then going on to the next thing. But like, there is a group of people that take it into entirely next level. I witnessed this one man who emptied out his ice like 4 times because he got one cube too many, rather than just like reach down with his fingers and pull out an ice cube, because it took that would take less energy. But maybe that was not proper etiquette, touching ice with your fingertips that you yourself are going to drink. I don't know. But then he, like, he wanted to defizz his drink. And if you've worked in a fast food industry, like, and you've seen their fountain, the automatic fountain pourers, like, basically many of the drink dispensers will fill it up to the top, and actually it'll spill over, so the fizz will
Uh huh.
basically not be there.
Right, right.
And so this guy was basically defizzing his own drink, but he was doing it over and over again. And I just wanted to scream at him, dude, just get down, sit down. The bubbles will go away like in the next 30 seconds, and then you can go back for refills. Like, it's not what you don't have to have the perfect one drink. There's like free refills.
You're not taking it out, and if you're sitting there, you might as well just take it down with you and get a refill when you're done.
Right, or the people who basically overfill their drinks, and then they're going to try to, like, walk amongst the plethora of children who are all like running and screaming at Costco, because inevitably, like, there's going to be like 3 people in the way of you getting your the top to your drink. And so they'll overfill the drinks and risk spilling their drinks, which often happens. And of course, theaters, and like, there's a whole bunch of, like, there's certain places where you're just like, they have the sticky floor syndrome, and
Yeah.
Costco happens to be one of those places where, again, you could fill your drink up halfway and just go back for more refills if you need it. Like, it's extreme.
I think this is a consumerism problem where we as consumers are charged what I think is actually quite a bit from companies versus what they make in profit on things, and so we want to get the most out of them. So usually, if you're filling up your drink and then leaving, you try to fill it up all the way to the top. That way you can get that extra inch of soda, so you can get your money's worth.
Yeah, but the crazy thing is that if you happen to fill up all the way, and you go to put the cap on, and you spill a little bit on your hand and on your shoe, and then you have to take 5 seconds to, like, go get the thing so you can wipe off your hand, and then you're just going to ignore the spill on the floor, because of course that's what we do. We make messes and don't clean them up.
It's disgusting.
It's just like one of those things where you're just like, dude, don't overfill your drink, lady. It's okay. It's like, there's another Mountain Dew on the horizon. There's another Pepsi in your future. This is not the last time you're ever gonna have soda or lemonade or whatever. It's okay. Walk away. Walk away.
I hope this is just an American phenomenon and it's not a thing in most of the rest of the world. I don't think it would be.
I could see it being very human, unfortunately. But the thing is that about these observations is that typically I only notice them because they affect me. Like the fun thing of, like, where you're driving through the parking lot, and then you get the opportunist parker, and you end up waiting behind the opportunist parker while they wait the entire time where they put the kids in the car seat, and you're just like, and I can't get around you because you happen to park right in the center, and you're
Right,
just like,
right.
gosh darn it. Or you're sitting there with your hot dog and your pizza in your hand. You're just like, I just want to get 3 ice cubes and fill up my drink, man. Like, can I get around you? Is it okay? No, I have to wait on you while you go through this sort of defizzing ritual that I have to be part
Right, like
of.
it's fine if people do weird things or take their time on things or do extra things on their own time or own, but if they're gonna, as soon as they're affecting you, you're not very happy.
It's just like, and the thing is that it would be okay if it was like, let's say a mom and a little girl were basically at the soda fountain. The girl really wanted to fill up her drink because it was like, again, it was going to be like a formative experience. I want to be a big kid now.
Hmm.
I'm actually probably fine with letting that kid have that experience. Or let's say, like, the guy who who drops the drink on his hand and has to take an extra few seconds being like, being angry at life and the fact that like now he has his hand to like clean up and sort of thing, like, and deal with his sort of bad experience. I'm actually okay taking the 5 to 30 seconds, dealing with those sort of experiences. But when people are basically like, let me involve you in my ritual, where you're just like, I don't enjoy that experience. I'm just like, no, you can do your circling ritual on your own time,
Yeah, I
or
totally
you
agree.
actually you can, like, if you want to like stand at like this soda fountain is something that the community that is going to be using, so it's just like, have a little bit of consideration for others before you spend the entire time standing in front of the ice box and blocking all, like, 8 drink dispensers. It's crazy. Anyway, so that's I was going on a rant in the shower yesterday, and it just seemed like it inevitably, like, I just kept on coming up with more and more things.
Darn those people for existing.
I know.
I know it's not really.
Well, I kind of have that a little bit, just like, oh my gosh. But
I made the logo. What did you think?
the GW logo,
Yeah, for Gravity Well Podcast, because that's what our podcast name is.
I thought it was okay. It happens to also have GW as in Grant Weber, and then I was like, but where's?
That was unintentional.
Yeah, well,
That was actually totally
no,
unintentional.
I can totally see that, and I don't. So when we talked about our names, we were all talking about like different things, and did we talk about the fact that we independently came up with Gravity as far as our
No, no,
aliases?
we didn't. Okay, so the reason that we are Gravity Well Podcast, besides that we thought gravity and some form of water, I think we did say that.
We basically, yeah, we talked about all kinds of, like, I was like, oh my gosh, like the water things, like gravity puddle sounds pretty cool, and gravity
Yeah, yeah.
aquifer, and gravity rain,
Gravity
or
stream.
gravity storm.
Uh-huh,
Yeah,
uh-huh. So the gravity well is a physics phenomenon. I'll put a link if you really are interested. But so we kind of like I kind of decided on that, and part of the reason we wanted to include gravity in our name is because Ben's username on the internet, who he's been around since the internet kind of started. Wow, I know, I can't believe he's that old either. Uh, so his username is Sparky Gravity,
yeah,
and a couple years ago I needed a username because I decided my kind of childhood username was not exactly what I wanted. I needed something new, and I was like, I think I want my name in it, and then some word. And alliteration is really cool, so I picked Grant Gravity. Well, I didn't really think about Ben's username, so
right.
I kind of independently came to a Gravity. So what's weird is we're related and we have similar usernames.
Right. It's almost like, you start having this sort of things where you're like, well, I just change my last name to Gravity or something
That'd be
like that,
cool.
and I'll
That'd be
just
a
be
cool
Grant
last name.
Gravity. I know. I really like Gravity as both like a word and a concept, and I wouldn't mind being Ben Gravity. It would be pretty cool.
I'm all for it. Hey, when you if you ever decide to eventually get married, you could
Yeah.
that's your opportunity to change your name.
Well, Christina wants me to take her last name, and I'm actually pretty fine with that.
I think if you're going to not do the standard take the male's last name, I think that just don't take names at all.
Yeah, that's kind of the way the sort of the modern trend is going, and I happen to kind of like it. I do sort of like the idea that, a married couple would share sort of a family name, and so that's why you would take a similar last name. And so I don't know. I think there are sort of pros and cons. I do like the idea of a family name, but unfortunately, my last name is Bramble. And if you don't know what a bramble is, it typically is a sticker bush or a blackberry bush. And but inevitably, whenever I basically say it for a receptionist at the dentist, or we're gonna go and get our names on some sort of a list for like tickets or an event, I'll say Bramble, and they will always think that I'm mumbling, because Bramble has basically only one vocal A,
Right.
like this vowel sound, and all the rest are consonants. The E on it at the end is silent. So it's inevitable that it always sounds like I'm mumbling, and I really dislike my last name because of this communicational problem where they're like,
Mm,
I don't know your last name. How do you spell it? Can you say it again?
right.
Like, I don't want to go through the process of basically reiterating my name over and over and over again. So,
Right. I don't typically have that problem. My name is pretty American and clear and
yeah. It'd be great to have like the last name of like Smith sometimes, I think,
ugh,
or Jones,
no.
just because like
No. I'm not for that. Common
what
names.
about like when John and Hank Green, like what if
That's
your
cool.
last name was a color?
That's really cool. I'll be Grant Red.
Yeah,
No, red's not. No, red does not work.
red doesn't work. So yeah, it turned out that we both really liked Gravity as like
A
a
username.
suffix, and so
So
we
we decided to include it in the thing. So do you know what the Red Hat Society is?
well, I know Black Hat and White Hat. Does Red
No,
Hat
no.
have anything to
So
do with that?
you're thinking of like hackers, white hat, black hat. No, this is so the Red Hat Society is a bunch of old ladies who kind of get together and don't want to conform to all of the social normities, and they kind of like, I'm thinking of like do you know who Maggie Smith is? She plays McGonagall in Harry
Oh yeah,
Potter.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah, and also does Downton Abbey or
yeah,
whatever
Downton
it is.
Abbey. So she's kind of like this witty, snarky old lady who's like, kind of a
Yeah,
little full of herself, but totally within her
you have
rights.
to love her. Yeah, yeah.
This is the type of woman who I would think of would be in the Red Hat Society. Okay, they wear red hats and
Interesting.
they wear purple dresses, and they do this because it clashes really terribly if you wear red hat and purple dress. So I started off with the logo being like a really light, couldn't even see it, purple, and I needed another color. I was like, I kind of like this red, and I decided to make them more and more bold and go with the Red Hat Society look of this is gonna clash. It's gonna kind of look not perfect, but it's gonna be very bold and it definitely has a look to it. So maybe the logo will develop with time and when I want to put more energy into it. But I just decided, Gravity Well Podcast. I didn't want to fit the whole word on there, so I just went with GW Podcast, which yes also happens to be my own initials.
Yeah, which is fine. I don't
We
really care.
needed a
But
thing,
yeah,
so
that's
once when I get it into
yep.
iTunes, which
I'm actually pretty happy with Gravity Wells. I secretly kind of wanted to change it every single time. That way we could just always like come up with a new thing. But it does kind of like as far as the concept of
yeah,
branding, right? It's like
yeah.
branding it has a certain value. But anyway, we could probably talk about that next time.
That's probably why, yeah, we would not change this because see, we want people to be able to find us. Yeah, I've had a little bit of trouble getting it into iTunes. We are technically a podcast, but because a podcast comes from an RSS feed, getting into the technical stuff.
I did not know that actually.
It comes from an RSS feed. That's what makes a podcast. And iTunes is like basically the number one provider of getting them. Most podcasts that are popular are in iTunes. But I'm having some difficulties there, and we'll get that up as soon as possible, so you can go subscribe and rate it in iTunes. Any last thoughts? Any finishing notes?
Nope.
This has been a Gravity Well podcast. Thank you for listening and have a lovely day. We'll see you next time.